Hey, I want to say hello to everybody out there that's listening. I want to send a big shout out to my friends, my partners from the Hood Table, and Liam, Moosey, Will, all you fellas. I want to talk about a few things today, ladies and gentlemen, that um, that we need to discuss. I think one, we need to talk about the election that's coming up. There are a lot of things happening, a lot of moving parts. We got the presidential election coming up this year, as well as we have a lot of local elections coming up this year. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to pay attention to whom we are putting in office. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't say that enough, that we have to pay attention to whom we are putting in office, because it's going to determine what will be done for the constituents that put him into office. So, ladies and gentlemen, I need you to really, really think about who you're voting for this year, uh, especially in this local area. We got a lot of individuals that are vying for your attention. A lot of people that are trying to get you to vote for them. Ladies and gentlemen, you beware, beware. I want to say that. Uh, don't want to stay stuck in this too long, ladies and gentlemen. This is something we're gonna have a whole show on. We're gonna talk about it as we continue to move closer to this election day. As we continue to move closer to the election day, we're gonna get into um, a lot of the different candidates that are running, what's going on with Trump and Biden, how to make an informed decision in regards to who you'll vote for when it comes to going in the polls. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about something today that's really saddening in our community, and that's the homicide rate. Now, I'm not talking about something that's um, isolated to one single place. I'm talking about something that has infected this entire country. I think there's an atmosphere of death in this country. That's kind of crazy to think that we have created such an atmosphere where people are comfortable with killing other people. People are comfortable with killing other people. We just had a triple homicide over the weekend and had another homicide just last night. We got to ask ourselves, what is it that we're doing that creates such a comfortable atmosphere for murderers, for people who are committing open homicide? And what can we do? I had an opportunity to talk to a group of young people 2 nights ago, immediately after the triple homicide that took place. And it was interesting what they talked about, or what they said in regards to some of the homicides that are taking place in this community. Some of them are in fear. Some of them are in fear. And I think sometimes we talk about young people as if they're 10 foot tall and bulletproof and they're not fearful. I've even heard some older people say that they were afraid to say something to young people because they feel that young people may retaliate against them in some way, shape, or form. But I had an opportunity to listen to some young people, and they are afraid as well. And so we can't lump all young people into the same category when it comes to this violence and this ignorance and the behavior that's unbecoming of a productive citizen. So we got to be able to interject as adults to say, okay, what is it that we can do to mitigate some of the circumstances in our community? Whereas our young people won't be so easily attracted to criminal life or criminal activity. What can we do to change that? See, because most of the time when you find blatant homicides like the ones that have occurred over the last few days, when you find that, you find those crimes are committed by individuals who are living or participating in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying all of them. Some of them are participating in criminal activity, or they could be even in the company of someone else who's participating in these activities, which sometimes inadvertently causes them harm. So we got to think as adults, and we got to think. We know we're about to vote and new president, maybe potentially new local leaders as well. So we got to think about what is it can we push them to do to make changes in our community so that we will have something that's a little more attractive to um, our young people who are one leaving this community, two attracted more to criminal activity than any productive lifestyle within the dynamics of the community. What is it? What can we do? How can we change this dynamics? Who can we address? Do we need to address the politicians? Hey man, you need to bring more jobs into this community. And this is where I'm talking about things that we can do. We can press our politicians and say, hey man, you've been doing a lot of talking a long time. What are you actually going to do? Or we need to think about moving them out of those positions. If they cannot do anything to change the dynamics of the situations within our community, especially when it comes to young people. We talk about all of this stuff that we can do. We talk about the different things that are happening in the community, but I don't see a lot of that happening in Black communities. I see a lot of growth, even in this place that we're in. I see a lot of growth in downtown area. I see new businesses coming in. But most of the things that I see that are coming into this city are, can I say this, are mostly white acclimated, if I can say that. Meaning they're mostly attractive to citizens who are not of color. Even the jobs that are coming in, many of those jobs are jobs that you're going to have some type of education or some type of skills that are going to be ascribed to these particular jobs that are coming in. Many of them are not jobs that young people can get. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Hey, we got a guest on with us, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna unpack this a little bit, man, in regards to what can we do, what changes can we make in our own community that can impact some of this violence that's taking place in our community. Is it more jobs or is it better jobs? Is it low skill jobs? I talked to a friend of mine. In fact, his name is Joe Glover. He is the director over a program called Block by Block, targeting ages 16 to 24. And they're going to teach those kids skills and all of these things. But what can we do to actually steer them towards that type of program? Do we need to promote it more? Because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you the truth. There's not a tremendous amount of promotion in that program. I know I do a lot of promoting of the program, and I've even taken young people over there myself and had them to sign up for the program. However, are we promoting it enough that young people know that, hey, man, there's something different that you can do? Are we not providing enough resources for some of the parents? What do you think?
Can we speak to that?
Yeah, let's speak to that. Let's speak to that.
So, on your first point, as it pertains to violence, the consensus sometimes is that if somebody is a shooter, that they So that means what comes with that, and I know Rodney, you're a clinical psychologist, okay? That means there's anxiety, low self-esteem, abandonment, all those things are taking place. It is unprecedented what children of color are going through right now as it pertains to this isolation for the suicide rate to be so high. So jobs are important, of course. When you can go on a job,
Yeah.
Interpersonal skills. Okay? Right?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is very valid, but I think if we have a mental health problem within our youth, we got to get to the crux of the foundation of why our children, which we didn't have this, with all of the turmoil in the 60s and the 70s, it was still, we didn't have this issue with our children. It's of the mental health.
Yeah.
Right? Our children in the 60s and 70s saw explicitly, openly, our racism to their parents and to themselves. Now, it's a little bit different. So why is it that in this time, what's going on with the mental health of our children? How can we, and also you said the parents, okay, how can we speak to the family and again open up this box and kill the stigma of within our community as it pertains to mental health? It's okay, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we really need to delve into that, man, especially when you're looking at mental illness within the African American community. We have so many issues that persist in our community, and a lot of them are associated with mental illness. Like I just talked about, we do have programs. We have a couple programs in this city, but even in that, those couple programs in this city, and I'm speaking from a job perspective that we can redirect youth to. But even in that, I think the county does a poor job in promoting that program. They got the money for it, they got it in place, but not many people even know about it. And so that becomes a disadvantage for those who may be seeking an avenue out of criminal lifestyle. And we got to look at mental illness. Mental illness plays a tremendous role in our society, as well as substance use, which is a DSM-5 disorder as well. And we got to look at, do the parents have resources, and could they be suffering from some type of mental illness or trauma or something to that effect? So we're kids of trauma, parents of trauma, raising kids in trauma who are going to traumatize other kids. And so we find ourselves at this particular place where we are in a cycle. And all we're getting is murder, murder, murder. So how do we break this cycle? That's what I want to know. I want to ask the community. How do we break this cycle? And you chime me in, Paul, anytime, baby. I want to understand this from a perspective of one, a clinician, a professional. Two, from a African American's standpoint, and three, as a community, I would say, activist or liaison. So I want to be able to understand this. How do we break this cycle? All players have to be involved, or some players be involved. Parents have to take the occasion to address the issues in their own house. Tell me, what is it? Because I've heard a little bit of all of that. What you think, Paul?
So I mean, what I'm trying to put together is and I'm gonna push the question back to you. Actually.
Okay.
In the 50s and the 60s, okay, and maybe we can ask the audience, maybe some of the old schoolers who are listening.
Yeah.
In the 50s and 60s, what was the difference? What was the difference between then and now as it pertains to mental health? The struggle. I mean, it seemed like the struggle may have been just as hard as it. I mean, what do you feel? I mean, as a clinician, what do you think about that? I mean, generationally, you're talking about generational traumas, adverse childhood experiences passed down unknowingly, unconsciously, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the difference was during, Malcolm's time as far as time as it pertains to now? Because the children struggle, but they seem healthier. What do you think about that?
I can kind of agree with that to a degree. I think at that time we had more community. We had more community during that time, whereas there were people in our neighborhoods and in our community who kind of looked after each other, even from the perspective where they saw some adverse behaviors in young people that they would address, and then they would bring that to the family. So we have to remember, during those times, Malcolm and Martin, the church or the mosque was the mecca of the community. Black people huddled, whether it was to the mosque or it was to the church. And in that, you found a sense of guidance in those particular places, whether it was the.
So that is a model, right?
Mm-hmm.
During tumultuous times that works, right?
Yeah.
Which means that we should try to apply that model again in real time now.
Yeah. But
Your question really is how do we do that? That's the question.
that yeah, because it's difficult. In my opinion, it's difficult because we've allowed ourselves to be so separated as a community, as a people. I'm gonna say as a people, based on the psychological effects from slavery. And if anybody can't realize that or see that, I think they're blind and they don't want to see, because we were taught to separate ourselves from each other. But we at some point in time, we came back and built community with each other. But that same mentality crept its way back in at some period of time after Malcolm and Martin, after the integration and all of that. That same type of thinking crept its way back into the Black community, where it's separation, it's to each his own, and my foe and no more. We went right back to that way of that master thinking, because we understand clearly during slavery, we were taught to be separate from each other. We were taught to at least come against each other to some degree, because I'm gonna put you in the house. I'm gonna make you scroll boss, and I'm gonna make you the man who will receive a little more if you bring me the information that I need in association. So it kind of kept us in a place where that we would think that it was better to separate than to draw closer. But then during that era, go ahead.
And of course, that bridge, within that bridge to the 21st century, 20th century was the heroin, the crack era, and all that stuff too. So that also too, we still kind of, there's still residual from that, in our community,
Yeah.
So, yes.
So how do we get back? Again, we go back to that same question. How do we put this back together? We got all these things happening in the community. We got more things that are happening for people of non-color than people of color. But for the people of color, the things that are happening, it's kind of isolated. A lot of people in the community, like I'm gonna talk about the Block by Block grant. A lot of people in the community don't know about it. Dr. Calvin Abad, he runs a environmental training program every year, man, and he gets a nice group of people because he promotes it well. You're talking about something that the county has implemented that I've hardly heard anything about it. So those types of things make a difference. How do we come together in the community? How do we get all the churches to start working it? Let's not say all of them. That would be kind of ludicrous if you think, because I know all of us are not going to work together. But how do we get a large group of churches to work together for the benefit of the community, not the benefit of the church, whereas we're creating these relationships with other churches, so I can preach at your anniversary, you can preach at mine, or I can get an honorarium or a stipend from you, or we create, not like that type of jump, but why can't we come together as community to start resolving some of the issues in our community and even promoting some of the positive things that are going on, so that people hear about this stuff, not just on one side of town, but throughout the dynamics of this city or this county that we live in, man, so that people will know, say, okay, man, I don't have to do this. I can get something else going for myself. How do we change that way of thinking?
The question is, what's fundamentally taking place while the churches who have been the foundation of the Black community forever, what's going on? Why they can't come together?
Well, again,
Are they serving a group ego? Why is it the churches who represent the community cannot come together?
Well, that's a whole nother issue in itself, man. Take a whole show to trying to unpack that. But the truth of the matter is, many of them just don't get along with other preachers and other denominations, and that is an issue in itself. That we have so many different denominations that many of them don't kind of work with each other simply because their denomination is different, but their ethnicity is the same. And that's where I kind of draw the line, man. I got some Muslim brothers, man, some great friends of mine, man. They look like me and they down with helping wherever they can help, man. It doesn't matter to me because they Christian or they Muslim or they Buddhist or they Hindu. I don't care. They black and they trying to help change the circumstances in our community. And I think many churches don't look from that perspective. I think they look from the perspective of their denomination sometimes, not throwing a blanket on all of them, but sometimes. I think the only way we change some of this stuff in our communities, man, we're going to have to get together on some level. Everything that we do in pockets. I'm talking about the black community. Most everything we do in pockets, except party. We're a party. We're gonna have several big events in the summer, and you're gonna get blacks from all over the city to come out. We can party good together, until we can't. We can say we're gonna have a black and white affair, we're gonna have a pink and purple affair, we're gonna have a picnic, a freaknik, or we're gonna do some of that, and you're gonna get everybody to come out and participate. But then when you say, well, we want to do something to alleviate some of this violence in our community, we want to do something to establish a central location that can be a conduit for people all over the city to help them become more productive. When you talk about stuff like that, now you got, I got my own organization. I'm starting my own organization. I'm a Baptist, or I'm a Pentecostal, or I'm a Church of God in Christ. So, you find all of these different things that come up when it comes to this stuff. But when it comes to resolving issues in the black community, you know what I'm saying? We don't want to do that. And I say that simply because we talk about working with each other, but we never really do that. We never really come together and really make it happen. Or say it again. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. But then we got all these politicians at the same time who always want our vote, but you never really get anything out of it. I mean, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Some of them talk about they do a lot of stuff, but we have to ask ourselves, are they really doing a lot of stuff to kind of, I'm talking about eliminate. And then the first thing they'll say, I'm only one person. Man, keep that in your bag or put it in your pipe and smoke it. I'm tired of hearing all of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? If you can't do nothing, get out of the office. Don't come telling me because you're the only one, or I'm just one person, or I'm just two people, or, I don't want to even hear that no more. I think what we need to find some people who got some balls, who don't care about nothing but putting something in place in the community. Now, those type of people may not last long, but at least they'll get something done while they're there. And I think now is the time. Man, I'm a little upset because, this stuff is consistently happening. And it's not just our community. We can look all over the country and we'll see that we're dying all over the country needlessly. And that ain't to say white people ain't killing white people, because white people are killing white people just as fast as black people are. However, you got to look at the size of our population and the meaning of us killing one another in our community. We're committing genocide within our own ethnicity, because these guys, most of them are young. Many of them have had no children and won't have any. So you take an already small population and you start to shrink it down by self-genocide. How does this make sense?
This is the thing, right? Other cultures and other races, they're not imploding. They have issues. I'm going to speak to your point.
Yeah.
They have the truth too. But we don't see them in total, and the black community is in total.
Yeah.
We are dying from to your point, from the inside out.
Absolutely, man. And this stuff is not making sense. You know, when black people control the consumer dynamics within our country, because we are the greatest consumers in this country. We control the money, in other words. So why is it that we don't have some of the institutions in our community that can change the thinking of some of our young people? Or why is it we're allowing some of the politicians who are sitting in seats to not fight for us in the manner that they should to put institutions in our community that'll help us? In fact, they're taking institutions out of our community. They're taking everything that they can take out of our community and use it for their own benefit. And y'all know what I'm talking about when I say they and them. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have to conclude that it's going to take us to stand up and say, hey, man, enough is enough. Yeah, I know black people killing each other. I know white people killing each other. But they have more resources, the white communities, the Jewish communities, the Asian communities, the Hispanic communities. They have more resources in their communities than the black community does. And even the resources that come in the black community, they got us fighting like cats and dogs to get a little bitty piece of it. And we know, honestly, that little bitty piece is not going to move the needle 1 centimeter. So how does that make sense? But yet we continue to allow them to get away with it. Even in Escambia County, they just got $2.5 million in opioid abatement funding, which they're going to receive funding every year for the next 18 years. You know, they've already given money out to some of the local governmental agencies like the Sheriff's Department, the Pensacola Police Department, County Jail, EMT. However, community-based organizations that want to get some of that money, they say, no, y'all can't get yet. Let us create an RFP. They didn't create an RFP for the Sheriff's Department. They didn't create an RFP for PPD. They didn't create an RFP for the EMT, nor the county jail. So I'm asking the question, why is it there were no parameters set for those agencies when now it comes to the general public, which these are public dollars, these aren't governmental dollars. There is an order that was put out by the federal government for opioid abatement funding usage, and I don't see anywhere where it describes the particular usage for those agencies that they've given the money to, some of them. And I don't see any articulation, whereas they are not allowed to go through, they are exempt from the exact same process as other community-based organizations. So all of these things are happening within our community, man. And then we look around and we see our kids consistently killing each other and going to prison. You think about that, man. And think about even the kids who are getting, the young people and the older people who are getting out of prison. You know, we got over 10,000 people being released from the state and the feds every week. Over 650,000 returning citizens every year. Think about these people coming back to the community with no sense of direction. No real institutions in those communities to give it. And I'm going to speak for the black community. Well, I ain't speaking for the black community. I'm speaking in a manner that I understand because I've been in prison and I came from prison back into the black community. So I'm going to speak from that perspective and say there are no institutions in the black community, or at least when I came out, and at least as far as what I can see now, there are none in the black community that are institutions that can redirect individuals who are returning citizens, who can help them stabilize. I see brothers and sisters getting out all the time. They come by here and see me, many of them, and say, hey man, how can I get my feet on the ground? How can I stabilize? They talk about escarrows and they talk about all these other places that help people reap and all of these places, which really are not helping people. really are not giving them direction, really are not giving them an opportunity to stabilize. So what I say to all the rest of them is, man, you can kiss my, you know what? Because you ain't really doing what you say you would do to help stabilize the community. And we have an issue in our community consistently. We got problems. We got agencies out here now that are receiving dollars, but they are so restrictive that they can hardly do anything with the money that they're getting. And then the little black agencies that got money, they don't do nothing but bicker and talk about each other for no godly reason. This stuff is crazy, man. But we still watching on the news where our kids are dying or our kids are killing each other. Something has to happen. Something has to change. If it doesn't, man, we'll commit self-genocide. This stuff has to change, brothers and sisters. How do we do that? How do we change that? Why don't we work together? Why can't we work together to help resolve some of these issues in our community? At least we need to be protesting and we need to be seeking out our politicians or our community leaders to bring some type of industry here that has low skill requirements, that we can put some of these brothers and sisters to work who are not working. And listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not naive by a long shot. I know there are many people who are not going to work. Just like I know there are many people in the penitentiary who need to be in the penitentiary. But for all of those who want to work, for all of those who want to change their direction, we don't have nothing for them. How do we change that? What do we do about that? Do we make the police stand up and say, hey man, patrol our communities more? No, we don't want the police to create a police type, military type state. For us, we already have an issue with police. So why are we going to want more police in our community? That's crazy. What we want to do is try to clean up our own community by implementing some type of institutions in our community. So we got to do that, ladies and gentlemen. If we don't do that, then what happens? How do we change this stuff? If we can't change it, it's not going to be changed, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say to my hood table brothers, Musi, Will, Lim, hey man, we got to continue to say something. We got to continue to stay where we are, man. Hey, I want to say my condolences to the Beasley family, man. My condolences to the families who lost their loved ones over the weekend. For all of those families who got the unfortunate news that their loved one had been killed by way of homicide, my condolences go out to you. And that's for all those throughout this year and last year, ladies and gentlemen. It's bad in our communities. We are the ones who have the power to change that, man. And we have to act on that power. If we do not, we're not going to get any resolution in our community because they're not going to care. Nobody's going to care about what's happening in our community if we don't care about what's happening in our community. So let's do that, man. We got brothers and sisters who are going to be returning to Free World Society, and like I say, man, they're releasing 10,000 returning citizens every week. More than 650,000 returning citizens come back to Free World Society every year. What are we going to have for them to do? Lest they find themselves caught back up in the same cycle of criminality, committing crimes, committing homicide, some committing suicide, many committing genocide. Got to change this, ladies and gentlemen, because if we don't, nobody's going to do it. Again, let's get back at it, Pensacola. Hey, this your man, About Time. It's Rodney Jones coming at you live from Talk Back. I want to say I'll holler at you next week. Peace.
By the way, I can now notify these breaking news updates. Would you like that?